Okay, so what are we doing today? Something. So I did find from last night, this is one of the old drawing exercises I would do, where I would just draw 3 shapes and then go out in each direction and then join them up with a single line. And I think as an exercise, especially for a beginner, they're very fun, and there's quite a lot you can do. And I think if you're just looking for something fun to draw, to practice, I think they're very good, because they look very complicated, but I'm going to show you that they're actually quite easy to make. But as I have said previously, sometimes the best things to draw, especially at the beginning, are as simple as you can make them. It's been a while. Just pop one somewhere for my own reference, because it has been a little while. So, I'm going to draw just 3 shapes, and then we're going to see how this goes. It's been a little while for me, and the other ones are much bigger than this. So, right, so this is how you start it. So draw your shapes, draw a line to the edge, then connect the shapes together. Don't have to use a squiggly line, you can use whatever line you want. And then, in each of these, we have a different perspective. So, we consider each of them to be 3-dimensional shapes. So then this one would do that. And then we represent the 3-dimensional edge with just some very simple lines. And you can be as precise with this as you want. But if this is what we're doing here, this one's going to follow the same. And there we go. This one has a different kind of edge. And if you're looking for things to practice, this is the kind of thing. So again, this one goes that way. This one will run in parallel. This one again. And work out what direction it is. So triangle, quite simple. Okay, that's that one. And if this is the direction we've chosen, circle a little bit trickier, just to get right. But again, you can be as loose with it as you want. And obviously, the earlier you're starting, the more probable it's going to be a bit loose. But if you're finding it loose, it's sometimes a lot better just to embrace it. And then the impression is that it's the style you're going for. You're going for a looser style. Because no one could really tell whether it was skill or whether it was style. But already you can see that is similar to this. Obviously, different scale here, but you could doodle this on anything. But it has a nice abstract feel to it. We're going to come in with some colour, but I often find when doodling initially, everything's in pen because it's normally on something. So here, I'm just going to follow a pattern, just some dots offset from each other, or in little squares or diamonds, depending on how you translate the pattern. Neither of those is wrong, it's just a different way of looking at it. It's whatever you find easiest. For me, I like to do a row at a time, and then by the time you've finished, the pattern looks complex. It's a bit like a chorus line all moving at the same time. Doesn't have to be complicated, just has to be synchronized. And suddenly the sum of the parts looks far more impressive than just drawing a little circle. And then I guess you can make a decision from there. So that's where I go normally. Oh, I see, yeah. Yeah, so then I'm making a colour palette decision. How you want them to go. And whether you want to do them like this at all. And everything I've done here will teach you the very basics of pen control. So the fact that this is a triangle, which is a shape someone can identify, you're practicing drawing in shape, or a square, or even a circle. So these are good practices. All objects are made up of shapes. That's where we start with things. So you start with your shapes. And like I say, the more of these you make, the more control you would have. You could reproduce it over and over, and hopefully each time you did, you'd have something that you were pleased with, which I think is the real key. Getting something you like. And I think what I remember from being taught art was drawing objects, and the thing is, I know that can be a bit tedious sometimes, especially if you're only starting, because what you draw is not going to look like the object, and that takes time, practice, and a degree of pen control. Which, if you don't practice, won't get any better. simple way to practice it. And if you really want to get good with any of this, you do just need to practice the pen control specifically. And for myself, this project at the moment is me warming myself back up, because skills, I wouldn't say they completely atrophy out of existence. And if you have something in your mind that you want to make, and you know that 6 months ago or a year ago when you were drawing every day, you could make a really good go of it, it becomes very frustrating when you pick it up again and you realise that your skill has atrophied and that you need to do some practice exercises to get yourself back up to speed. And this is what I would suggest. But obviously any variation would work. I'm sure someone will look at this and do something much more interesting with it. But as I say, even in principle, what I'm doing is I'm doing it in the simplest way possible. But you could make this more and more complicated as you went on. It's just, I think this has a really nice balance between being simple enough but also looking pretty good. Now you see, for me, these specific pens are not something I have a lot of experience in. So this is very useful, just to see how exactly I can use them. Like here, see, there's like a bleeding effect going on there, which is interesting, and also here, sort of streams of light within the pen mark, which to me is interesting. That's always something I think is quite important. No matter what medium you're working in, there'll be something about it that just is that medium. Just doesn't work in another. Also this, I suppose. So there's a layering going on. So that's interesting. So if you had an exercise that you liked, like this one, or maybe you'll pick up something that's a combination of things. Every time you change media, or you want to try something new, you then pick up that exercise and suddenly you sort of look like you know what you're doing right out of the gate. So say someone put a bunch of chalks in front of me and I just whacked out one of these tri-shapes, abstracty things. People would think I was quite smart, and you know, they'd be like, no, that's very good, how did you come up with that? But of course, I think when you're an artist, you know that it's all smokes and mirrors, really. And if you just had this in your back pocket, you could just break it out when you wanted it. But even I showed I had to check, because I am out of practice. I don't think there's anything wrong with being out of practice. There's nothing wrong with having other priorities. But at some point, you got to prioritize the thing that you want to do. And for a long time, I thought that it should be something more complicated, more important and grandiose. And the reality became the only thing I really wanted to do was the same thing I did when I was a child, which is sit and draw. And inexplicably, that I draw meaning from. Just doing this has a great deal of meaning to me. I could not explain it to you, could not justify it. For a long time, that meant that I didn't do it. But I've come to the conclusion, as a man in his early 30s now, that you should find meaning wherever you find it, and not where you expect to find it. So should I have had some sort of grand religious realization, sort of feels more appropriate. And all I seem to keep finding is it's the simplest things that I derive the most meaning from. I currently have 4 subscribers, and to be honest with you, just one person watches this and gets something out of it. I'll feel like it was worthwhile. But having said that, the previous video has no views, and I'll be honest, I still just get satisfaction out of the fact that it's there. Someone could see it, because I think that's half the battle. Once it's up, yeah, people might see it, maybe they might not, but if you put it out there, you took the shot, and you're only ever going to miss a shot you don't take. So it's good to take the shot. And you can see from my recording thing that there's kind of a noise in the background, which I can't really help, because at the moment there is construction going on, and I can hear my other half playing the kalimba to the baby in the other room. I have no idea if that's getting picked up or not. And what I would like is absolute silence. But I think it's probably more instructive in a way to represent that this 20 minutes is a stolen piece of time, and all that you get, hopefully the more time you learn to steal and prioritize. But just a little project time to yourself. Okay. Yeah. I think that's pretty reasonable. Looks pretty cool. Ha! It's made a funny pattern on the next page. That'll be interesting for next time. But like I said, nice, simple, still has some complexity. Give it a go.